because of the fact that I didn't have any experience, I didn't have an education, I didn't go to college, I didn't feel like I deserved to be able to like have a you, because some people before would hear me talk about politics and, you know, I like would be at Bernie rallies and stuff. And they were like, why don't you do something like that? I'm like, no, because I didn't have honestly, I just didn't have enough confidence. I didn't think I was qualified to do it. So
because the people that we hire and pay to do it are so qualified.
Yeah.
But anyway, we digress.
Yeah. So then I started to do the makeup and the skincare content, and I was making some money. It wasn't huge or anything. I didn't have very many followers, but I was making money, which was nice. Like I was actually getting paid to like do sponsored posts and like, you know, things like that. I was like, oh, this is great. This is cool. But then it was two things happened. Number one, I started to get bored. I love fashion and I love makeup, but the content around it was already boring me. And I was like less than a year in. Like I was already getting bored with the do my makeup with me, like do this look. I was like, all right, I'm already bored.
Is that amazing how people can do that for years?
No, I know. It's amazing. And I still love it, but it just was something that I was like, man, people tell you that if you're going to do content creation as a full-time job, because it's a lot of work, you have to be in it for whatever you're doing it for, because it can get exhausting. If you're like me, I put out 4 videos a day. I don't do breaks. Wow. I put out content all day, every day, and I live stream twice a week. So I'm like, and that's in between going to rallies and protests and like all this stuff. So like, I was like, okay, I need to find something that I like more than just doing makeup content and skincare content, because this is already getting boring. And then I started to get into it. People were like, don't do politics. But then the GOP primary happened with like Vivek Ramaswamy and all that shit. And I just got sucked right back in. I was like, I can't not talk about it because they're so annoying. So then I started like doing all these videos. And of course, like people were like, no, go back to doing like whatever content. I was like, no, I'm going to start doing this because I need to do something that I'm actually like, that I actually like, which is like politics and news. And so I started making politics and news content more and more, starting probably in the summer of 2023. And then October 7th happened.
Okay.
Everything changed.
And on that note, this is how I think both of us became acquainted with you. And for those of you who are not familiar with Blakeley, this will probably ring a bell.
Zionists. Of course we'll sponsor a birthright trip for you as long as you have one Jewish parent or none, or you convert, or you're Christian or whatever. We are Zionists. Of course, all innocent life taken is a tragedy. What about Palestinian children? I said innocent. Is that still on? We are Zionists. No one throws wah fest like we do. Number 1 cry bullies. We're number 1. We are Zionists. The only reason why South Africa's trying to come for us is because they're jelly. We're the home of apartheid now, ho. We are Zionists. Of course we support the idea of ethnically cleansing an entire people and calling it voluntary resettlement. Listen, those settlements aren't going to build themselves. We're Zionists. Of course we're from New York, but we're going to say Hamas because it sounds scary and brown. We're Zionists. Of course we're going to try to get all your speech banned, and if you point it out, we're going to call you racist. We're Zionists. I love to remind people how dangerous it is to go over to Gaza and how unsafe you are, especially if you're queer. And I mean it. It is really unsafe. Like, really unsafe. Like, seriously, the IDF will wipe you out. We're Zionists. Our right-wing evangelical lobby is working around the clock to get boycotting banned. What lobby, bigot? We're Christian Zionists. Of course we support all of you returning to the Holy Land so Armageddon can come and you'll all blow up and go to hell. We're Zionists. We're experts in Hamas lighting, and if you question anything our government is doing, you will be met with, but Hamas!
Notice how they don't talk about that so much anymore. Only the few people still clinging on to that for dear life.
Yes. You know what's kind of insane about that video? First of all, that was probably my 3rd viral video that I got. Before it got banned it got taken off of TikTok after it had gone viral within like 2 days. Yeah. And then
because of the Chinese, right? Because the Chinese in TikTok, yes, that's the problem.
Yeah, but what I find kind of amazing about that video, I made that video in January of 2024, and everything I said was true, was things that they actually do or things that they're doing now. And what's amazing is, I was not prepared for what virality was going to bring out. It really introduced me to the Zionists on a personal level that I was not prepared for.
Well, did you grow up around them? Did you
No.
grow up around? And okay, so the whole
No.
was it? It was new to you, the psychosis.
All of it, everything was new. Before October 7th happened, I didn't know shit about Israel Palestine. Nothing. And except for this was the extent of my knowledge. Somebody who was raised kind of Christian evangelical was my dad one time I remember telling me when I was like 16 and I said, "Why are they always at war in the Middle East?" And he went, "It's biblical." That was all he said. That was like pretty much the end of it.
That's like the religious version of it's complicated.
Yes, it is. It's biblical. And then when I grew up and I started to like hear people talk about it, I always felt insecure because everybody would make you feel like there was no way you could understand it. People being like, it's very, very complicated. Like you have no idea if you're ignorant. I was neither Jewish nor Palestinian. So people would say to me, you know, like if you would bring it up or other people I would see bring it up, you have no right to be talking about this. But from what this was the extent of what I knew. Israel was good and a good place because they protected Jews after the Holocaust and today from scary Arab and Muslim terrorists who want them all dead because they're Jews.
Right.
And
okay,
that's
so you grew up with that standard talking point.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
And I believed it. I believed it. And
I wanted to make Aliyah and move there. So I was with it. I was raised Zionist.
Yeah, I'm actually honestly impressed every time I see somebody that actually was raised as a Zionist and comes out of it because the cult is no joke. Like
yeah,
it's
it's
so
scary.
intense. It's actually terrifying to like see. Mine was not that. Mine was like so passive. You know what I mean? Like mine was very much passive indoctrination. The same way that like I was never actually explicitly like told you have to support Israel. It was everything in my life that just kind of sat on background. The way the news talked about it, the way it was reported, the way the church talked about it.
They didn't have to tell you.
Right. The way pastors would say that you have to support Israel because, Armageddon. So, the end times. So it was like, always there. And then like I never saw it. I never met an anti-Zionist, never knew anybody who was anti-Zionist. I never met any Palestinians. I didn't really know any Arabs. I was a kid when 9/11 happened. So all of it was, I was like very Islamophobic without even realizing I was.
Right.
Like, again, no one ever came to me and said like, be Islamophobic. It was more like everything on background, like 9/11.
So you're a 9/11 kid. Like you're one of the products of that. Like that's one of those moments like the JFK assassination where everybody remembers and it's like, was this landmark moment. So you're somebody that's post that mentality is where you kind of grew up. Yeah.
Yeah. And everything was like scary Arab. Like, Muslim terrorists are coming. ISIS is down the block. Sharia law is coming. Like, it's actually absurd. Like, when you think about it. But that was how I was raised. And then, like, when, again, all on background. And it was like, I never saw anyone talk about Gaza. Never saw anybody talk about Palestine. It was all always just about, and even when I grew up and I started to get involved in politics and I became a progressive, because I was raised pretty conservative. And then when I became a progressive when I was grown up, and my first real introduction to politics was in 2016 during Bernie's campaign, I still, which makes sense now because Bernie's low-key also a Zionist, but at the time, I noted, like, it still, looking back, wasn't really talked about. Like, it wasn't, I had a very much like chauvinistic American mindset where like nothing outside the US mattered to me. I didn't care about foreign policy. If it was outside of our borders, I didn't give a shit. Like everything to me, even when I was first involved in politics, was just about America. And like I said, because this is such like there's so much suffocating Israeli propaganda in this country, it's not like it was like Democrats and Republicans where both sides fight each other. It was like, no, they're all on the same side. They're all on the side of Israel. It doesn't matter if you're a progressive, lefty, like Bernie Sanders or AOC, whether you're a regular standard hack liberal like Kirsten Gillibrand or Chuck Schumer or Richie or Tel Aviv Torres, or if you're a right winger like Ted Cruz or Trump or anyone, they're all on the same. They're all on the same side, Flanders. So I had no like understanding really of what happened. And then, like I said, October 7th happened and I immediately fell for all the Zionist lies at first. I was like, oh my gosh.
How long did it take you?
Within a few weeks, I was
Okay, because I gave it. I said in the very beginning, I'm giving everyone a 2 to 3 week grace period before you have to get yourself right on this. Like before you have the time to realize something is not what they're telling us.
well, initially, like I believed all the lies, like I said, because basically I'd been primed my whole life for this. But then I was like, I did start to think, okay, well, why did this happen? It was pretty quickly that I was like, well, why did this happen? Why did they do this? I mean, I'm assuming it's because they're hateful and they're all barbarians who just want to kill Jews, but like I kind of want to look into this. And here comes TikTok. And all of a sudden on TikTok, which is the real reason why they wanted it banned, I started following and seeing videos by Palestinians for the first time in my entire life. And I was like, what are they saying about it? I was just curious. What are they saying about it? I want to know what they're saying about it. So I started following Palestinian creators, and I started following Palestinians on Twitter, and I started following anti-Zionist Jews on Twitter and looking for people, because I was so terrified, even when I started realizing that like Israel was bad, I was so terrified to criticize them because I really believed that criticizing Israel was criticizing Jews. And like, I didn't want to be anti-Semitic. So like, I was so afraid of being not just called anti-Semitic, I was afraid of being anti-Semitic. Like, I was like, of course I don't want to be anti-Semitic. So I was afraid of criticizing them because to me, the conflation was very successful of conflating those two things together. So I started looking for anti-Zionist Jews, and from the creators that I was first following, they started recommending books.
Yes.
People. So Norm Finkelstein was one of the first people that somebody was like, you need to go read his book about the Holocaust industrial complex. You need to read Rashid Khalidi's 100 Years War on Palestine. And people just started recommending books to me. And it was so overwhelming. And also like documentaries and podcasts and like, so basically people just started like sending me all this stuff, like go like read this book and go get this podcast and follow this. Sim Kern was another anti-Zionist Jew that I started following.
I love her. I'm getting her book any day now.
She's non-binary too. So she uses they, them pronouns.
Well, I just know that I ordered a signed book and I'm like, where's my book? And still mine should be coming any day. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
That's a cool looking cover. I like that.
It is. It's really cool. They actually signed my book because I went to their book reading the other day in Brooklyn.
Okay. Mine is supposed to be signed when it gets here. Okay. Because I was told, I'm just saying, because I waited the extra time. So
yes. No, Sim is great. And Sim was one of the people that I first started following.
Okay.
Because I wanted to listen. I already knew the Zionist perspective. I wanted to listen to a perspective coming from Jews that were not Zionists. So I started following Sim, and I learned a lot from Sim. It makes sense that Sim, I found out the other day, used to be a teacher. I was like, oh, it makes so much sense.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Because one of the things I loved about Sim early on when I was starting to learn about Palestine was the way that they presented information was really relatable and understandable. Like, I remember one of the first videos I saw Sim do was when they were like, ethno-states are bad. No one gets an ethno-state. And I was like, yeah. Why do they get an ethno-state? Like, that was one of like the first like things that I saw. And then, like I said, there's a Palestinian creator that was another like big influence on my early, when like as far as like TikTok goes, that also recommended books and stuff. Their name is Sbey. I always like know I'm pronouncing it wrong, but he is a Palestinian content creator who was one of the first ones that like really like threw me. I was like trying to just wrap my head around like his perspective, because like he was the first one that said like, no, this is a settler colony. This is the settler colony. And, you know, the Palestinians are resisting. And I was like, wait, what?
I was taught there was no one there. So, you know, that my people, because of my people, the desert bloomed. That's what I was told.